Might as well speak here. So yeah, was just telling about my poems here.
Okay.
So I'm going to make a collection of 9 different poems. I already chose the titles for them.
Content over everything!
Okay.
Now and the order. I'm going to start making them. Actually, I made the first poem before I chose any titles or any.
That's
any
a good
structure.
sign. Yeah.
But now I'm going to organize it a bit better. I have 2 of them. One of them is called Historia. It's the first poem of all of them.
Okay.
And the other poem, the first one that I wrote, is called Apostle of War. It's the 4th poem.
Okay.
In the whole, in the structure.
Okay.
I remember the Apostle of War now because I made it quite a while ago, like more than a month ago. But Historia, I have it here. If you want, I can.
Yeah, let's take a look.
Can show it to you.
Yeah. Is there like an underlying theme to these 9
Of
poems?
course.
Oh.
They all have symbolism.
Yeah.
They take very long to make, man. They take very long.
Poetry's hard. I know.
So, Historian. When lightning conquered stagnation, an exchange was performed. As fire battled water, from perfection life malformed, and became an orphan daughter before the touch of imagination. The first cycle is existence, inevitable chance through persistence. First part. This part of the poem is how life came to be.
Yeah.
Is my definition of that, my interpretation of it. And lightning conquered stagnation. When lightning struck the earth and gave life, it conquered stagnation, which in this case means death.
Yeah.
In life is lightning is life. Is life. An exchange was performed. So basically, the piece of death was exchanged for the conflict of life, for the competition, for the change. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
As fire battled water is an allusion for the beginning of Earth, when the volcanoes were erupting and the crust was being created.
Yep.
From perfection, life malformed. Again, the perfect in existence was misshapen into imperfect life.
Yeah.
Into something that's fluent, that's changing.
Yeah.
Perfection is lack of change.
Life malformed. That's right. Yep.
And became an orphan daughter because this life, it didn't have another life that preceded it.
Didn't have a parent.
It came from lack of life.
Yeah.
From light. Before the touch of imagination, again, before any kind of self-awareness, any kind of intelligence, because the first life was,
mindless.
Exactly. The first cycle is existence. And obviously, what this means inevitable chance through persistence.
Yeah.
It means that eventually, it was just by chance, so it seems very random. It could have never happened, but something that has a possibility to happen will happen.
Will eventually happen.
Will eventually happen throughout eternity.
Yep, I see that. Okay.
The second part. All beings wish for life. Endless peace is their greatest fear. But as much as they might strive, their end will be always near. The docile ones have grown in strength and size and number, but flesh devourers hold the throne. Their claws and teeth, they're all asunder. Yet no muscle or bone but brain brought them rule over the food chain.
Nice.
So all beings wish for life, endless peace is their greatest fear. It means all beings, the purpose of life is to expand and to exist. Its inherent fear is death.
Yes.
Its big enemy
the eternal
is death,
peace.
unexistence. I'm trying to make a funny comparison to war and peace. Because absolute peace is in existence, and life is in a sense a constant
is a struggle. It's always a struggle.
Existing.
That's right. Yeah.
But as much as they might strive, their end will be always near. From one side we have the hope, the ambition to live, and from the other side we have the inevitability of eventual death.
No escaping it. That's right.
Docile ones have grown in strength and size and number. The first life was they would consume minerals, and they would consume grass and plants and stuff like that. You know what I mean? The herbivorous beings, and I'm alluding to them. But flesh devourers hold the throne. When the carnivorous beings came to be, they completed the nature. They brought balance to nature because they didn't allow the herbivorous ones to get out of control. They controlled their numbers. Hold the throne. Their claws and teeth, they're all asunder. It means that they took over the docile ones, even though they were stronger, they were more numerous, and all that stuff. Because they are docile. We're not aggressive.
Because the interesting thing is, I like the clarity. It's like even though I'm hearing your poem for the first time, I'm kind of arriving at the same conclusions. That it's like I don't have to like think it's like, oh, what's he saying, what's he's not saying.
Yeah.
The clarity is actually pretty good.
I tried to make it symbolic, but at the same time make it kind of clear what I mean. So it doesn't lead to complete.
It's hard work to do that.
I know. I know.
Okay.
Their claws and teeth are all asunder. Yet no muscle or bone but brain brought them rule over the food chain. In the end, the carnivorous and omnivorous beings are the intelligent beings. The herbivorous ones are almost always very stupid.
Pretty
almost
driven by pretty primal impulses.
The very meaning of a carnivorous being is that it needs to keep outsmarting the herbivorous being. So if it's dumber or as intelligent, it will not be able to survive. Reading the poems now. This poem is called Historia, about the creation of the beginning of life, the evolution, and eventually the creation of human society. I'm already in about half of it. I might tell you the beginning later. So this is the second part. The first part is the beginning of life. The second part is about the evolution of life, about how life prospered, blossomed. And the third part is about, you'll see. It is thus not surprising that two-legged apes had their uprising. Their enemies crushed, their planet subdued. A new pyramid has been erected. From its top, the world is viewed by a god that was self-selected. And as the hunt turned into the fray, man became his own prey. The winners consume the defeated. The wolves are ruling their sheep. Justice depends on how cattle is treated. Yes, yet the price of ambition is steep. The second is nature, the third one is power. From our future we must not cower.
It gets pretty dark, doesn't it?
I know it does.
Okay.
That's the current theme in my poems. They always get darker and darker.
Nice. No, you've got a serious talent, man.
Thank
this
you,
is good
thank
stuff.
You. It takes a lot of work, bro. It takes a lot of work.
Trust me, I know. Like, I'm pretty sure every line, there have been 100 lines that you threw out.
Not 100, not that much more, actually. It's kind of, for me, it depends on the how inspired I am. When I'm inspired, I can sometimes basically throw out a whole paragraph of these poems.
It's effortless, and then like getting
then
one...
I'm like waiting a whole week to get that kind of inspiration. That's how I usually function. So what does this work? It is thus not surprising that two-legged apes had their uprising. Seeing that intelligence rules the world, it's not surprising at all that two-legged apes, humans, who have the biggest mental capacity, evolved beyond the other animals. Even though they don't have hides, they don't have claws, they don't have teeth to tear everything else asunder. Their enemies crushed, their planet subdued. The humans conquered the planet eventually. They conquered all animal life. A new pyramid has been erected. Instead of the food chain pyramid, on the top the super predator, on the bottom the most lowest herbivorous beings, the humans became the top of the pyramid. But this time a new pyramid was erected, a pyramid with humans at the top and humans in the bottom.
Exploitation.
Exploitation and the structure of
Class
power.
struggle.
I wouldn't go to class struggle. I would go more to the structure of power, because humans need a structure of power to exist. Humans are social beings. Hierarchy, yes. A new pyramid has been erected. You sit on this thing. Might be. Oh, yeah, nice. Okay. From its top, the world is viewed by a god that was self-selected. In this case, I mean by God, I mean the figures of power in human society, and they are the ones who dictate the morality, which
put themselves up there.
The morality we have is the God that we believe, that believers believe in, because they believe it's divine. But in reality, it was created by humans in terms of functionality, to be able to function, to be able to exist. You know what I mean? And in this case, the first kings. For example, in Sumer, the civilization of Sumer, there were priest kings. They were linked to God, or the Egyptians. They were gods themselves.
Or even in ancient Judea, it was the temple, the priests of the temple that would set the laws.
They are
and rule
very
the
much
land.
linked to God, all figures of power from the beginning of
the
history.
Pope.
Exactly.
Okay.
That was self-selected. Again, self-selected. They got to power to their ambition with their own strength. And as the hunt turned into the fray, man became his own prey. You know, now that animals could never hunt humans because humans became way too powerful, humans became hunting humans. For instead of having meat and food as reward, they had this power of conquest, of expansion as their reward. You know what I mean? The winners consume the defeated. The wolves are ruling their sheep. Means that the winners will, dominate the ones that are losing, the defeated ones. They will be the powerful, and the loser will be the bottom of the food chain. The wolves are ruling their sheep again. The wolves are the powerful, and the sheep are the ruled ones.
Subjugated.
Justice depends on how cattle is treated. This quote is very deep because we, in the end, humans are cattle to themselves. And if a society, if the figures of power, if the wolves treat well their cattle, it's a good society. But if the wolves treat their cattle very badly, it's a bad society. That is justice. How the cattle is treated, how the human cattle is treated by other humans. Yet the price of ambition is steep. It contradicts the previous one, and yet they coexist in our real world because it's as I said about the empires. The more an empire brings to society, the better the cattle is treated, the better the civilization is. But to gain that society, a sacrifice must be made.
So it's the old saying, heavy is the head that bears the crown.
Yes. So justice depends on how cattle is treated, yet the price of ambition is steep. Because to gain that power, you will have cattle that is treated badly, you will have losses. The second is nature, the third one is power. From our future we must not cower. The second cycle, the first cycle is existence, the second cycle is nature, the evolution, and the third one is power, the organization of humans in the power
it's
structure.
It's an interesting open end because I can't tell if you see the future as something that deserves to be cowered from, or it shouldn't be cowered from, but we are cowering from it anyway.
I think humans have a tendency to cower from their intelligence, because in the end, intelligence is evil. Without intelligence, there is no evil. And if you look at the animals, the most intelligent animals are the only ones capable of sadism and inflicting pain purposefully, just to inflict pain.
Interesting.
Again, if you have a possibility, the possibility becomes eventually a certainty, at least sometimes. You know what I mean?
The possibility
it will
exists,
eventually
something will bring it
come
about.
to pass. You know what I mean? So that's the finishing part.
Nice.
So I think right now we have a structure of wolves and sheep, and in the future we will have a structure of humans and monsters. It's basically the same, but it's way more developed, with humans being way more perceptive of the world, and the monsters being the humans that take over the power and take the burden and take the responsibility for dominating the others, and take the responsibility for bringing to the humans a better life.
That is an interesting perspective, and to be fair, I don't think it's a future. I think it's a reality today. And I wouldn't call them monsters, but certainly leadership does involve sort of toning down your humanity slightly, and
a lot. I would say a lot.
And if you focus exclusively on rational thinking, you're sort of taking away a bit of your heart and soul and replacing it with imagine for a second it was a computer that ran the show. You see that's almost a monstrous thing that's controlling your life, that has no human characteristics whatsoever. It's the most exaggerated version of what you're describing, is having like a machine, like an algorithm dictating your life.
Humanity is usually defined by compassion, by how humans, how much compassion they have to each other. And the structure of power, the people at the top of the food chain, of the human food chain, they can't give in to their compassion too much.
You can't.
They need compassion to understand the people that they're ruling.
Absolutely.
But they can't be ruled by their compassion.
It's not a possibility. I know what you mean. Nice.
Especially to achieve power.
This is interesting. This is very interesting, man. You've got a serious talent.
Thanks. If you thought this was dark, the next one is called Apostle of War. So you will like this.
The title isn't very optimistic. Let's put it that way. Nice.
Okay.
No,
this one I
are you going to
remember.
publish these somewhere, or are you going to write them up?
I might.
Nice.
Published on COE.
COE,
Record label.
See, The one that's called Apostle of War, I actually know it by heart.
Okay.
I made it a few months ago, so I already know it.
Nice.
So as to survive, so as to live, humans hide to thrive, humans feign to give. But even if truth is desired, who can of it be inquired? It means to survive and to live in the world, to live and to live well. You know, survival is just living, and to live is to live well. Humans hide to thrive, they hide their real being to thrive, and they feign as if they're giving for something to the others just for altruistic reasons. Because in reality they're helping to be helped. It's a mutual agreement to help to be helped.
That's the point of altruism.
Humans feign to give. But even if truth is desired, who can of it be inquired? It's about the uncertainty of the real world, about the difference in perceptions that humans have, about the, you know, even if we want to achieve the truth, who can we ask of it? How can we be certain of it? So all we have is approximations.
That's true.
Okay, the second verse. Will is the reason, ambition is the meaning. Their denial is self-treason, whose punishment is searing. But as interest antagonize, conflict will always rise. Will is the reason. Ambition.
As interest antagonize, conflict will always rise. That's that's
of course.
that's a good one. I like it.
So will is the reason, ambition is the meaning. If we don't have a personal perspective, a personal desire, we don't exist.
That's true.
For me, soul. I don't like the word soul. I prefer the word will. For me, my will is my soul. My desires, my ambitions, the things that resulted in the qualities from my parents, linked to my experiences in life, linked to my conclusions. All of that is my will. It shapes my will, and for me, it's my soul. It's my real soul.
Oh, that's an interesting point of view.
Will is the reason, ambition is the meaning. Their denial is self-treason. You deny yourself your own existence. You deny yourself your own soul. Once you accept a being to incorporate you absolutely, once you accept something to exist, and you are only part of it, like the absolute belief in God, for example. It's self-treason as far as I see
it's
it.
interesting you say that, because isn't that kind of what Muslims say when they say submission to God? It's like
absolute submission.
You sort of push that.
They deny their own will, and I heard that many times, that they give their will to the will of Allah. They deny their own will, and thus, in reality, they exist far less than I exist with all my uncertainties, because I do have a will of my own. I don't just follow a different will to my own.
Interesting point of view. Okay.
Their denial is self-treason, whose punishment is searing. Again, the punishment of that will is that, first of all, you're not living for yourself. In reality, you don't actually exist epistemologically. You only exist in body. But your soul is denied to yourself because your will is denied. That's how I see it. And plus, after people die, one of the possibilities I believe in is that we will keep living if we choose to keep living. If our will is strong enough to link us to this world, then we might choose if we keep living in a certain shape or form, or if we just disappear. And the people who truly believe that their will is completely submitted to the will of their God, they don't actually exist with their will. Their soul is self-denied, and that is the only way for their soul to stop existing.
Subsumed by another entity.
And thus they don't actually exist. Their denial is self-treason, whose punishment is searing. That's the punishment. That even after they die, the biggest probability is that they will disappear because they don't believe in themselves. Whose punishment is searing. But as interests antagonize, conflict will always rise. That means that if every single person has a very specific will of their own and they don't want to make any compromise to the other, we will not be able to live together. Some people will have to compromise, and some people will have to be the winners. That's how the world is shaped. Because if everybody antagonizes each other, and if everybody pushes the blanket to their own side and doesn't do any compromises, we will not be able to survive in the society. That's what this last one means, one of the main meanings of it. But as interests antagonize, conflict will always rise. But even though not everybody has a very strong will, there are people who have, and their will is usually different.
So here's a question: who's narrating these words? You see what I so because the sense I'm getting is that it's not you; it's someone with a much more competitive take of the world. Just from those lines, it doesn't sound like it's not Pavlov talking. It's someone a bit more competitive and aggressive than you are, or that's the sense I've gotten just from the first paragraph. I haven't gone through the rest of it, but automatic, because you don't strike me as that winner take all kind of guy. You strike me as someone who would find a way to make a compromise rather than it's only winners and losers and I'm always going to be the winner.
Exactly.
You're not that psychopathic.
Absolute strength will win.
Yeah.
But it shouldn't win.
Yeah.
Because if absolute strength wins, that means humans will stop being humans and they will start being beasts and machines.
Yeah, pretty much.
That's why, to a certain extent, I'm too weak to be this absolute power.
Yeah.
To a certain other extent, I am more functional than this absolute power.
Yeah.
In a different interpretation.
Yeah.
But
so who's the narrator?
The Apostle of War.
The Apostle of War. Okay.
You could say that.
Okay.
The Apostle of War. I mean, it's one of the characters that I came up with.
Yeah.
And you could say it's part of my being, but it's not the only part of my being.
Yeah.
This absolute struggle for power and strife and desire to achieve power is part of me, but it's not the only part of me, because there are many different beings in myself, many different conflicting ideas. Some of them are absolute strength, some of them are absolute weakness, absolute kindness to a certain extent.
Yeah, yeah.
And sometimes they enter in big struggles between each other.
Yeah, it's a different voice. I hear you. Yeah.
So, interest and agonized conflict will always rise. Okay. And so the carnage has begun, like so many times in the past, throughout history. Different interests have bred wars, they have bred conflicts. So that's why I say the carnage has begun like so many times in the past. It has happened many, many times, and it will keep happening as long as people keep having ambition, which is something necessary to human existence. So we will not be able to completely erase conflict or war. It's against the human nature itself. We'll stop being humans, it's as simple as that. Like so many times in the past, the fire won't spare anyone until of the pedestals remains one last. It means the conflict will keep on until there is one pedestal, or to a certain extent one God, one belief, one idea, one justice that humans follow, one structure of power. Which I'm not sure if it will happen, but it's a possibility that it will happen. I'm just saying there will be conflict until that happens, at least big conflict, big wars. And if that happens, there probably will be conflict, but in smaller scale. But it's hard to tell at that point. Until of the pedestals remains one last. A new castle is shaped once more, as the bridge of corpses stretches to its door.
Okay.
Every time a new ideology and a new structure of power is created, there is a price to it, and there is a bridge of corpses that is built to get to it.
So you've seen Berserk, right?
Holy shit! I got very inspired by Griffith's dream. Yeah.
You've seen Berserk.
The idea of evil, man. Dude, yeah, exactly.
I'm on your page.
I was inspired with that. Yeah.
I'm on your page.
This is the little part that's very funny because I was inspired by that part of Berserk.
Yeah.
It's very funny. Not only Berserk, in the manga of Attack on Titan, there's a part where Irvin is standing on top of a mound of corpses.
Like just a mound. Yeah. It's a very old image. Yeah.
It's a very powerful image, and it's a harsh truth to the world.
Yeah.
It can't really be denied, as the bridge of corpses stretches to its door.
Yeah.
I mean, you understand it perfectly, but I might as well say a little bit about it.
Yeah,
it's the idea of ambition has a price, and every time you implement a new rule and a new structure of power, there will be casualties to it.
Yeah.
Because the previous power will not just let it go, just like that.
100%.
Next one.
Have you ever heard the phrase, all regulations are written in blood? That for a regulation to exist, that means there's people who have died and people who have suffered because of it before the rule gets set in place. So I know where you're coming from. It measures on both ambition and other things, so I hear you. Yeah.
There's a quote that says, history is written by the victor.
Yeah.
I would add another part, with the blood of the loser.
Yeah, sometimes, yeah.
I think that's the real truth. of history. But next part of the poem, it still has a long way to go.
Okay.
The white knight held the flame, but now the flame him grips. Let me read the whole poem, because this one is very deep in meaning. As the crimson cape of fame, his flesh from bone rips. His black-burned meat and sorrow will be pale ash and death tomorrow. I inspired this poem with the 4 horsemen of apocalypse.
Yep.
The white horseman, the red horseman, the black horseman, and the pale horseman.
Yep.
You know about them,
Yeah,
don't you?
yeah, the pale rider, yep.
The white knight held the flame, the white horseman, war, conquest. But now the flame him grips, the red horseman. As the crimson cape of fame, and again the flame, his flesh from bone rips. And the crimson cape of fame, it means every time an empire will become powerful. Just put this in. Oh, they would see me because I was sitting, but I'm kind of uncomfortable sitting now. As the crimson cape of fame, his flesh from bone rips. It means that every time a country will achieve power, eventually they will become corrupted by it. They will become corrupted by the power. And the cape of fame, of desire for power, of desire of relevance in the world, of praise, will consume them. His flesh from bone rips. His black burned meat and sorrow, the black horseman, will be pale ash and death tomorrow, the pale horseman, and death, the death of the empire. That's how all empires are created and end. That's the cycle of the empires as they create new empires.
Yes, they rise and fall.
The world prepares for a new play, and all the actors are ready, but only the main ones have a say, as the supporters stand steady. The curtain is lifted by the puppet dictator, as a mirror is the only spectator.
Jeez. Oh my God, man, that's classic. I love it. Yeah. It's so many contradictions in that one sentence. It's like, my God.
I know. But life is full of contradictions.
Yeah.
And we have to understand them to be able to live.
Have you ever heard of Bertolt Brecht, the playwright? Yeah, his entire thing was contradictions. He's just putting 2 things in opposition of each other at one point. It's an entire career of plays just on that one concept. Yeah. Oh, anyway, sorry for interrupting.
No, it's fine. So, the world prepares for a new play. It means the world is winding up for a new cycle. Because I believe history goes in a spiral. Every time events kind of repeat, they're not exactly the same, and they're in a bigger scale. Unless humanity dies off. That's the only way that the spiral of history will diminish. Be extinguished to a certain extent. The world prepares for a new play, and all the actors are ready. All the people, all the men and women, all the world's a stage, and all the men and women are mere players. That's from Shakespeare. But only the main ones have a say. It means the figures of power, the people who own the world, the people who decide things, the main actors. As the supporters stand steady, the ones who follow, the ones who do the bidding of the strong. The curtain is lifted by the puppet dictator. It means that the figures of power at this point are not exactly the people who are the main actors. As a mirror is the only spectator. It means that the spectator of mankind is mankind itself. There is no actual God to decide who is just, who is unjust. No God to crush a civilization or a faction who's being terrible. It's just about functionality and morality.
Who are they performing this play for? It's for themselves. At the end.
Exactly. And the last one. This is my favorite. The rulers in the shadow are self-assured. Their castles unseen, their power transcendent. But their fall is secured, for from fear no being is independent. As a raven through the battle sky will soar, they will be haunted by the apostle of war.
That's classic. Love it.
So this last one again, it means it's about the figures of power, especially nowadays. Because
we were talking about that. It's like how like the object of the powerful today is to conceal their power.
Content over everything from your humanity.
Man, say it straight. Man, don't listen to BBC. man don't listen to ITV.
It's not about being a parent.
Listen.
It's no longer a noble in a castle that you can storm with the other peasants.
Yeah.
It's something way more complicated than that.
That's right. Yeah.
And that's what it is. The rulers in the shadow, the hidden rulers, are self-assured. Their secrecy is their assurance, is their assurance of their supremacy.
Yeah, that's right.
Their castles unseen. They have no single castle to storm. They have no single ideology to fight against.
Yeah.
Their power transcendent. That's how their power is far greater than the power